Hello and welcome to part 12 of Project Dracunalysис. This is my second attempt at recording it because I got quite far in and I realised I had the microphone switched off, which is top skills there. Anyway, you don't need to know that. But we will continue. So continuing, we have this following on from where we had the mess up, or I should say the mistake with the telegram going to the wrong place and Dr. Seward didn't get the message. And now he's arrived at Hillingham to treat Lucy. We have an interesting bit here I've highlighted because it's got the idea of Seward, when the door isn't opened, he blames the servants. He doesn't really think that anything's wrong. This is a bit of an alarm bell should really have been ringing in his head. But he thinks they're lazy. He thinks the servants have been in bed. It's 10 o'clock. Why aren't the servants up? Can't believe it. So it just seems an interesting bit of context about Victorian attitudes to class. That's what they assume. Well, what Seward assumes anyway. We've got a metaphor here, and it's actually extended metaphor of the chain of doom. Was this desolation but another link in the chain of doom which seemed drawing tight around us? And that's extended metaphor. Was it indeed a house of death to which I had come too late? So Stoker's really building up the suspense here. Then this is a reference to that telegram that I mentioned earlier on as well. And Seward finds that these servant women, they've been drugged with laudanum and they're all literally out for the counts. Hooray. Anyway, Lucy's mother is dead as well, so you have a look of terror fixed upon it. So she's been scared to death. Obviously we know who did that. It's Dracula. It is not yet too late. Quick, bring the brandy. Van Helsing doesn't want a quick drink. He wants to use it for medicinal purposes. Stoker also makes it clear that Dr. Seward isn't a total numpty and brings up the drugged alcohol. He brings up not the decanter of sherry. He actually brings a drink. It turns out it's not drugged, so that's fine. The brandy's okay. This poor soul is nearly as cold as that beside her. She will need to be heated before we can do anything more. So this is the crew of Light, as they are known later on, their attempts to rescue Lucy, their last minute attempt here, their last chance, not last minute so much. We have a metaphor of it was a stand-up fight with death, and then a pause told him so. So this is all Dr. Seward's narration. We have a chess metaphor here. The first gain is ours. Check to the king. And the use of chess as a symbol, it's a good shorthand way of expressing the idea of intelligence, and because it's binaries and it is black versus white is the typical pieces in chess, you've got battle of good versus evil as well, and the idea of Van Helsing as the foil to Dracula too. And then we have another class reference here about the servants had closed the blinds because that's what lower classes do. When someone dies, they did it straight away. Just a bit for class attitudes, really. Quincy joins the action here, and he's going to end up donating blood as well. And we have a brave man's blood is the best thing on this earth when a woman is in trouble. You're a man and no mistake. And remember that contextually, Victorians, it was new to them, the idea of like blood transfusion. They didn't really know exactly how it worked. They hadn't really identified at the time of writing this novel the blood groups. And there's also, I have to be careful how I phrase this, but the idea of blood mixing, these other men are kind of muscling in on the territory that Arthur would have effectively as Lucy's fiance. And when they're married, they would, again, got to think of YouTube, consummate their marriage, and then their, how do I put this delicately, their bodily fluids are united. They are one and the same. and their souls are bonded. So that's why there's a bit of uneasiness about all of this use of this very new medical technique. And then it also says the devil, doesn't it? I think I got through that one okay. This is there because so then there's a big gap there, but carrying on, this is a reference to the note that Lucy had written. There was a bit in the previous chapter where she was worried about what was going to happen, and she'd put it down in writing, and they're now finding the note that she's actually written before. Van Helsing, Stoker writes it like this for the purposes of suspense. I stood looking at the professor, and after a pause asked him, in God's name, what does it all mean? Was she or is she mad, or what sort of horrible danger is it? Do not trouble about it now. Forget it for the present. You shall know and understand it all in good time, but it will be later. The readers actually know a little bit more about this, don't we? Because we've actually read it before Dr. Seward, so there's dramatic irony there as well. There's antithesis here at the bottom. If she be sad in the foes that beset her, is at least happy in the friends that love her. There's antithesis there, and again, I think re-emphasising this battle of good versus evil there as well. And we have Quincy makes a reference to encountering vampire bats on one of his previous adventures. And he talks one of those big bats that they call vampires had guarded her in the night, and what with his gorge and the vein left open, he's actually talking about one of his horses here, in case you're worried. There wasn't enough blood in her to let her stand up, and I had to put a bullet through her as she lay. He's talking about one of his horses being bitten by a vampire bat. So he's had some experience of this, but again, it's all dramatic irony. We know Dracula is a vampire. We know Dracula can transform into a bat. Then I don't think I'd highlighted too much else on this one. It's just kind of heroically helping out with the blood transfusion. Here I'd highlighted this because this is a reference to her vampire teeth. Gums drawn back from the teeth, which thus looked positively longer and sharper than usual. When she woke, the softness of her eyes evidently changed expression, so she looked her own self, although a dying one. So this is a good one for crossing boundaries. It's a good one for liminal spaces. Lucy is transitioning into becoming a vampire, and that's physically manifesting itself in the teeth. There's still some of her humanity is left at this point. That's the and carrying on, we have a little sad parenthesis here. Letter Mina Harker to Lucy Westenra, unopened by her. Oh, she couldn't open it. She was too busy being transformed into a vampire. So this is another one of the informal, friendly letters. Obviously, they send each other. It gives us some extra information about what's been happening with them. Obviously, since they've been married, Jonathan Harker is getting better. He's being made a partner at the law firm that he works at. Oh, sorry, I lost my thread then. She's dying, and there's a sense of tragedy there because of, obviously, Mina doesn't know. Again, it's dramatic irony. I garbled that bit, sorry, but I'm not going to go back and delete it because I've had enough problems with this today with the microphone. So you'll just have to put up with it, I'm afraid. It's all kind of good news. But again, it's to emphasise the tragedy that Lucy is dying, and if you can cope, which I'm sure you can. We have a letter here about, in Dr. Seward's absence, Patrick Hennessy, who is also a doctor. That's what those first two letters mean. I don't know what all of these other ones mean. However, he's got a lot of qualifications, old Patrick Hennessy, by the look of it. But that means that's doctor there. Anyway, he works at the asylum as well, and he's letting him know what's happening with Renfield. Basically, delivery drivers have turned up, and they're delivering to the Carfax Abbey Dracula's boxes of earth, which are basically his recharge points, aren't they? Because they've got the consecrated earth that he can desecrate by recharging himself in. And basically, Renfield just shouts loads of abuse at them and everything, and it's just their encounter with him. They end up locking Renfield into the padded room. Renfield's agitated because Dracula is obviously getting closer and closer, and his earth has arrived, so that's connected to Renfield. And I highlighted this because Stoker does this attempt at replicating like Cockney dialect. I don't know how successful it is or how accurate it would be in the time. My suspicion is it's closer to caricature rather than completely realistic. I think it's just to give an impression of Cockney dialect. I don't think it's necessarily that accurate, but that's the thing that we have here. And then we have another sadly unopened letter from Mina to Lucy. And we have some more dramatic irony of, I would not care if I heard this moment the flapping of the wings of the angel of death, and he has been flapping those grim wings to some purpose of late. Lucy's mother and Arthur's father are now... Let me get on with my work. So obviously this is foreshadowing Lucy's imminent death. And Arthur has also come to see her at this point. Peeped out by the corner of the blind. There was a full moonlight, and I could see that the noise was made by a great bat which wheeled around, doubtless attracted by the light, although so dim. So more dramatic irony there. It's a giant bat. Readers all know that it's Dracula. She'd torn away the garlic flowers from her throat. So Dracula's here effectively to seal the deal, to finish converting her into a vampire. As he did so, he started back, and I could hear his ejaculation, "Mein Gott!" This means, in this time, it means a sudden outburst. Okay? Verbal sudden outburst. Mein Gott, which is actually German, not Dutch. But it just suggests Van Helsing's foreignness, even though it's not actually accurate. Then, she is dying. It will not be long now. There's this is an interesting sequence where Lucy recovers a little bit of energy. Arthur, oh my love, I am so glad you have come. Kiss me. Arthur bent eagerly over to kiss her, but at that instant Van Helsing, who like me had been startled by a voice, swooped upon him and, catching him by the neck with both hands, dragged him back with a fury of strength which I never thought he could have possessed, and actually hurled him almost across the room. Van Helsing is a man of very unusual qualities, most notably his intelligence, but he also seems to have great physical strength here as well. Maybe it's adrenaline of realising that Arthur's in danger of being vampirised himself, so he hurls him away. Not for your life, he said, not for your living soul and hers. And he stood between them like a lion at bay, so nice simile there. And this here is where Lucy dies, so stertorous means it's like loud breathing, and then it suddenly stopped. This is another reference to a poem. In this case, it's by Thomas Hood. Thomas Hood, who was a poet he was a 19th century poet, and he'd written a poem called The Deathbed. And if you actually look up the poem, you can see why Stoker's included a reference to it here. And it would be reasonably well known at the time as well. And if you want to throw in a bit of an extra term there, that quotation's got chiasmus in it because it crosses over dying while she slept and sleeping when she died. Chiasmus is a cross structure. I stood behind Van Helsing and said, "Ah, well, poor girl, there is peace for her at last. It is the end." He turned to me and said with grave solemnity, "Not so, alas, not so. It is only the beginning." When I asked him what he meant, he only shook his head and answered, "We can do nothing as yet. Wait and see." So there's suspense. And I think one of the most exciting things in the novel is, Lucy becoming a vampire. That's very exciting. Anyway, spoiler alerts, but you should know anyway if you're listening to these. Anyway, thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, comment, notification bell, etc., etc. Go to the other videos. There's lots of stuff. Hopefully will be useful to you. And thank you for your time, and have a wonderful day or night.